My name is Gary Dill, and this is chapter 29. Get up, good looking, I said when Austin stirred. These nurses can't seem to leave you alone. Gosh, he said. One of his green eyes sparkled at me out of puffy blue-black flesh. His bruises were darker, and the other swollen shiner was oozing gunk. He looked even worse, but he was awake. The nurse said his vitals looked good, and the doctor would be in a bit later. Looking good, he said with typical good humor, but it was groaned more than said. You're in a lot of pain, aren't you? I'm okay. Are you hungry? There was no hesitation. Pizza, he said. I knew then that he would recover. It's time for breakfast, not pizza. Pizza, Margarita, he said with effort. Anytime. Obviously, speaking was painful. Probably breathing was too, but he didn't complain. When I came back from the bathroom, Austin said, I saw your ass, like a little kid. Well, I hope you're not too upset. Nah, good looking, he said. I thought Rocky Hill was likely to know where Gil was since he had Gil's truck. I brought him into the interrogation room, cuffed and resentful. I seated him at the table and sat across from him. Bitch, he mumbled several times. I want you to tell me where Gil is. He glared at me and I glared back. After a while, I tried again. Where is Gil Young? I don't know. I told you that already. You have his truck. So? So you let him off somewhere yesterday and kept the truck. I borrowed it because my truck broke down. I thought about that a long, silent moment. I think we're failing to communicate, so let me put it this way. He watched me with a condescending smirk. The county jail is a comfortable place to be, usually. You can watch television, read, and meals are served on time. You'll be allowed outside for a couple of hours every day, and I can make sure you have none of these privileges. Not one while you're here. It was a total bluff, but it worked. Rocky's smirk gradually turned into a glare. You are such a bitch. You haven't seen bitch yet, but you will if you don't tell me Gil's location. I had more threats in mind, but before I had time to use them, he considered, sighed heavily, and said, I left him at the university stables yesterday. He was going to ride somewhere? Yeah, he was going to an old lion shack on the eastern side of the Sunshine Ranch. We go there sometimes and camp out. Sunshine Ranch borders the university's land to the south. How far away is the shack? It's about a 3-hour ride, more or less. You sure he's there? That's where he said he was going. What did he think he would accomplish by running away? Rocky shrugged. He thought it would blow over and he could come back in a few days. Well, this isn't going to blow over. But we didn't do anything. Then why is Gil running? I guess because he hit the retard. You call Austin names, but he's more of a man than any of you. And Gil didn't hit him, he beat him viciously. I took the prisoner back to his cell and tried to slip away, but Sheriff Ben was waiting in the hall outside the cells. Are you going to bring Gil in? Yes, sir. I'm going to send another deputy with you. Oh, I can't wait, Sheriff. I'll phone you if I have trouble. You are most certainly going to wait. This will only take a minute. Someone else will slow me down. I can ride and shoot. You don't need to send a man. Well, I would never think that I don't want to wait. Deputy Ricos, will you arrange for me to have a horse? Meanwhile, I'm going to go saddle one. Saddle two, because Deputy White is going to go with you, and you had better wait for him. That's a direct order. I didn't like waiting or going with Deputy White, but the sheriff was the boss. I saddled a bay gelding whose stall had no name posted. I called him Desperado because we were going after one. He was docile and cooperative and seemed glad to see me, so saddling him was easy. I put water, apples, and granola bars into a saddlebag. I was adjusting the saddle on a mare named Millie for Deputy White when he showed up. He was one of the deputies that had looked for Austin without results. That was irritating, but he was usually an okay guy to work with. What's the plan? He asked, hitching up his uniform pants by the gun belt. The sheriff says you're the primary on this one. I pictured Sheriff Ben delivering that news to a senior male deputy and tried not to laugh. Can you ride? I asked. Of course. Then the plan is to ride in, grab the perp, and bring him out. You can finish saddling your horse while I find some boots that fit. I went into the tack room and borrowed a pair of pink cowboy boots with a swirly turquoise design. They were heavy on girly, but the only size sixes in the group. Deputy White, whose nickname is Red, gawked at my boots, but had the sense to keep his big mouth shut. I mounted Desperado. Okay, boys, let's go get that son of a bitch. He seemed enthusiastic about the prospect of it. Red and Millie seemed less so. We walked around the perimeter of a large corral until I saw the unmistakable tracks of a horse heading south. To Desperado's delight, we began to gallop. Gill's path was easy to follow because the only other tracks were old ones, left by cattle. After a mile, we stopped for Red and Millie to catch up. I didn't say I was a great rider, he whined. I haven't ridden in a long time. We'll slow down. It was a sparkling day with a cool breeze. Alpine is at a higher elevation than Terlingua, which means more rain and cooler temperatures. That equals less desert and more grassland. The mountains are greener, more covered with small trees and native grasses, and therefore not as stark and stunning as the mountains to the south. The tracks became more confusing when there began to be others. I had to get down and study the ground. Oh, we've lost them, Red sighed. Not yet, I said, and thought of my pappy, who had taught me to track when I was a kid and continued to challenge me with tracking dilemmas as I grew up. I once helped him track a runaway cow into Big Bend National Park, where having livestock was a serious offense. It had escaped the fencing at our ranch, and at times the hoof prints were non-existent. But not to Peppy. He showed me how to figure it out. Eventually the tracks became those of a single horse again. We stopped at a tiny copse of juniper and ash trees near a spring to let the horses drink. We rested and ate granola bars and talked about nothing worth repeating. Before I got back in the saddle, I checked my Beretta. I prayed I wouldn't need it, but criminals are impossible to second guess. Someone who would viciously beat a handicapped man without provocation wouldn't think twice about hurting a couple of deputies. Maybe it was better I wasn't going on alone. Red patted his weapon. This baby's always ready. Well, mine too, but I like to check it. About that time, 3 hours had passed. The tracks changed from a running gait to a walking one, which might mean nothing, or it could mean we were nearing the shack. I didn't want Gil to see us before we got the lay of the place, so I slowed but didn't dismount. We rounded a bend, and in a little valley ahead we saw it. There was a horse tied to a stately cottonwood that shaded the building. There was no sign of Gil, but we couldn't assume he wouldn't see us. I studied the scene with binoculars, but saw nothing except the animal, its tail swishing calmly. When I handed the binocs to Red, he agreed. We tied our mounts to some sturdy brush and took off on foot, up a rise to the left, planning an approach in from the rear. It took about a half an hour to make our way to a promontory at the back of the shack. There were no windows in the rear wall. A line shack is only used occasionally by cowboys when weather becomes suddenly inclement or they have to be away overnight. They're not built for comfort or looks, and are not used much now that trucks often replace horses in fence line work. There were no roads leading to this shack, though, and no tire tracks that I could see. I hesitated a moment, then took out my Beretta and slowly approached. Red did the same, following so close that if I stopped, he would slam onto me. We were nearly there when an explosion blasted the silence, and a bullet whizzed past our heads. It came from behind and higher up, but it missed me or I wouldn't be telling the story. It embedded itself in the wooden wall of the building, and another one followed. The second one hit Red. His weapon tumbled out of his hand, and he cried out and stumbled forward, gripping his arm. Red! I'm okay, came out in a groan. Stop or you're dead, yelled a voice I might not have recognized, except that it had to be Gil Young. Don't move or I'll shoot again. I didn't move. He was the type to shoot a woman in the back. Put your hands up, the voice commanded, coming steadily closer. I need to call for help, the voice commanded, coming steadily closer. I need to call for help, I said, but I put them up. My heart was pounding so hard, I wondered if a 25-year-old could drop dead of a heart attack. Footsteps crunched behind me. Turn around and do it slowly. When I did, I saw Red eyeing his fallen pistol. I hoped he could get it before Gil thought of taking it. Once I faced Gil, he whistled low. You failed to mention you're a lawman, sweet lips. You left that out on purpose, didn't you? His tone was playful, flirty even, but his eyes were angry. Drop your weapon right now. I didn't want to put my beautiful Beretta into the dirt, but didn't see a way out of it. When I let it fall, he moved the tip of the rifle to my breast. Don't get any big ideas, amigo, he said to Red, and yanked up the fallen weapon. Damn. Take that shirt off, Gil said to me. No. I'll shoot you. Go ahead. I'm not taking my shirt off. Margarita, you better do what he says, Red advised. Desperado whinnied. I didn't know if his advice was to comply with the asshole or if it was a atta girl. Anyway, I was not about to comply. I want to look at your titties. No. I wanted him to move closer. I have the gun, sweetheart. I could just take it off you. Well, I'm not going to take it off. We could have some serious fun. He ran the rifle across my breast, barely touching them. You like that, don't you? No, I didn't. I willed him to come closer. He took another step, still not close enough. You want me so bad, you came all the way looking for me. The man was delusional. You've shot an officer of the law, I reminded him. He appeared unconcerned. Yeah, I guess I have, but he won't die. He needs medical attention. Gil barely glanced at Red and then turned back to me. We'll send him back on the horse he rode in on. That's not funny, Gil. You're in serious trouble, and it will only get worse if you don't let me call for help. He reddened in anger and stepped toward me, but still not close enough. It was hard to be patient. If you hurt me, oh, shut up, sweet lips. When he came still closer and put his hand in the front of my shirt to rip it away, I brought my knee into his groin with all my might. He groaned, dropped the rifle, and doubled over, taking the front of my shirt with him. I was finally exposed, but he had lost interest in my anatomy because of pressing problems with his own. I yanked my pistol from the ground, picked up his rifle, took Red's Beretta from Gil's pocket, and watched Gil writhe in the dirt. We should get back. I wanted to say more, but none of it was kind or professional. Up on the ridge, Desperado seemed to be cutting loose with a whole string of the things I couldn't say. Why do I have to go with you? I swear, sweet lips, I think you're stalking me. If you want to have sex, you shouldn't knee a man in his privates. You're under arrest for assaulting a deputy. What gives you the right to come here in the first place? We came to take you in for questioning. About? You tried to beat Austin Williams to death. Oh, I did not. He's in the hospital in critical condition. Oh, you're insane. Just my luck. You're an insane fucking stalking bitch. Later, I didn't seem to be making any friends in the cowboy sector. I unclipped handcuffs from my belt. You're under arrest. Hold on there, Deputy Do-Right. I hit him once with a shovel handle. I admit to that, but it wasn't assault. When I left, he was fine. Let's go. Oh, you're such a bitch. Now, you're just being redundant. You're a heartless bitch. I'm a mean, heartless bitch. We still have to go. I flipped open my cell phone and called the dispatcher. He would send an ambulance as far as it could get and would also notify the sheriff. I told him we'd proceed toward the stables on horseback. I cuffed Gil and recited his rights while he called me a lot of things. Heartless bitch was the least aggravating. We walked with his horse until we reached mine. He made our progress as difficult as he could. Well, I brought Millie down for Red, but I wasn't sure how I would get him onto her. His shirt sleeve was soaked with blood, but when I ripped the material away, the bleeding had mostly stopped. It appeared he had a through and through. "I can get on if you just give me a hand when I say," he said. With less struggle than I would have thought, we got him on and headed back to where Gill waited against his will. "There's no need for those handcuffs," the prisoner yelled as we approached. "I'm not going to take 'em off." "How will I ride with my hands cuffed together?" "Oh, I'll show you how." "I wouldn't really have hurt you, sweet lips." He had a shirt that wasn't ripped, and I needed it. I had all the weapons. "I'm going to remove those cuffs so you can take your shirt off. Slowly. And set it on the ground. One false move and I will shoot you." "Oh, you wouldn't shoot me." "Try me." "Oh, I get it. You want to see me naked." I didn't bother to set him straight. As he took off his shirt, he said, "Next it'll be my pants. If you take off your pants, I will shoot you." Red chuckled at that, but reserved comment. When Gill was recuffed, I put his shirt on over my ruined one. "Ah, sweet lips, you want to kill all the fun." I ignored him and finally got him into the saddle while he protested and called me creative combinations of derogatory names. We had to move slowly because of Red's injury. The rodeo cowboy wasn't doing so well either. He was not a horseman, only a 2-second bull rider. At one stop, I heard hoofbeats thundering toward us and pulled out my weapon, expecting more bad boys. Well, it was Sheriff Ben. I was so relieved to see him I could have cried, except I was in my tough lawman role. In all those old cowboy movies Austin and I loved to watch, I'd never even seen a sheriff or a deputy cry. After he greeted us, he said, "I thought I should come and see myself." "You okay, Red?" "Yes, sir." The ambulance had to stop after the first pasture, but they're waiting. "She's a bitch," spit Gill. Said the sheriff. "I'm not kidding," he said. Said Sheriff Ben again. Then he rode up close to Gill. "Do you understand that you have the right to remain silent?" "Yeah, she told me." "I would advise you to exercise that right." Gill didn't say another word for a long time. We were nearly back when he spoke. "I didn't assault that retarded man, Sheriff." "Then who did?" "I don't know, I swear." "We'll talk back at the office." By the time we were in the home stretch, the sun was setting. It was making its usual spectacular display in the west, oblivious to the challenges faced by the sheriffs and their deputies. The soft colors made the grasses and other plants in the pasture look golden. Even the air seemed filled with flecks of gold. Well, Red was hustled into the ambulance, and the rest of us rode to the stables. Sheriff Ben's big truck was parked at the barn. He got Gill down and put him into the back seat, then walked over to me. I was still sitting on Desperado. "Will you put these horses away, Margarita?" "Yes, sir." "And then come to the office." "Did you come for us because I'm a woman?" The sheriff pushed his hat back and zeroed in on me. "I came for you because you were deputies in trouble. The two of you had gone after a man suspected of nearly beating another man to death. When I heard that Gill had shot Red, I couldn't sit still. If it had Barney, I'd have still come. Does that answer your question, Deputy? I don't want to be treated differently because I'm a woman. Yeah, I know that about you. I knew that from day one. Okay then. What happened to your shirt? He asked. Gil tore it off of me before I subdued him. I see. His attention moved to my feet. Are those your boots, Deputy Ricos? You don't like 'em? The sheriff blushed. Oh, I like 'em fine. They just don't look like you. Well, they're definitely not me. I don't think you should let Barney see you in those. No, sir, I won't. He grinned, tipped his hat, and got into the truck. When I returned to the office, I got an extra uniform shirt from my locker and took myself and Gil's shirt into the sheriff's office. I was glad to get the fake cowboy, sweaty, criminal smell of him away from me. He admitted to hitting him once with a shovel, the sheriff said when I walked in, but he swears Austin was conscious and walking when he left. Gil tells a similar story to the others about another man being there. The tall, silent, one-armed stranger. I want you to talk to Austin and see if he remembers something else. Maybe there was another man. Before you go, I need to tell you that the flashlight we sent to the lab had the prints of Jimmy Joe Blanks. So he was at my house, looking into my bedroom with a flashlight. Are you surprised? Well, no, and it explains a few things. A thought came that practically made my hair stand on end. Sheriff, what if Jimmy Joe assaulted Austin? Why would he do that? He saw me with him and didn't like it. He can't understand that Austin is like a brother to me. He told Barney I'd broken his heart by sleeping with a retarded man. Jimmy Joe might be the tall stranger those guys saw hanging around. I'm going to get another deputy and go to his apartment. I'll call you when I know something.